They gave him a nickname, not the kind you get from friends, the kind that follows you. Bullshit, Bertie. It was a joke, until you realized what the joke was hiding. 700 million rand, 26 companies, and paperwork that by his own admission was never real to begin with. His real name was Ahmed Borat. To the people who worked with him, he was charming, quick with a story. The kind of man who could explain a complicated transaction in a way that made you nod along, even when something in your stomach told you not to. That was the gift. That was also the problem. Because behind the nickname, behind the smile, was an operation that moved enormous sums of money out of South Africa, quietly, legally, on paper, catastrophically, in reality. This is the story of how 700 million rand left the country through invoices that did not describe anything that ever existed, and how the man at the center of it eventually said it himself, out loud, on the record. The paperwork was fake. Let's go back. The scheme worked the way these things always work, not with a heist, not with a vault, with forms. South African exchange controls require a reason for money to leave the country. You cannot simply wire millions offshore. You need a paper trail, an import, a service, a contract, something the bank can stamp and the regulator can file away. Borat's network created the trail. According to the Amapungan investigation, 26 entities were used to push roughly 700 million rand abroad. Some of the money moved through Hong Kong, some through intermediaries with names that meant nothing to the public. Fawz Yusuf, Ridwan Lunat, names you would never have heard. Names that on the documentation looked like ordinary trading partners. And inside the banks, there were people too. Amir Sabir, head of investments and treasury at Habib Overseas Bank. A title that sounds boring on a business card. A title that in this story mattered enormously. Because money this size does not move without someone, somewhere, processing the request. So how did it work? A company in South Africa would generate an invoice. The invoice would say it was paying for imported goods. The goods, in many cases, did not exist, or existed only on paper, or existed but cost a fraction of what was declared. The bank would process the foreign payment. The money would land in an account offshore, and from there, it would scatter. This is the architecture of modern money laundering. It is not dramatic. There is no helicopter. There is no duffel bag. There is a man at a desk and a stamp and an invoice that nobody bothered to verify. Borat later confessed. He told investigators the paperwork was fabricated. He named others. He implicated Sabir at Habib. He pointed back to Mohammed Bamath, described as the mastermind of an earlier version of the same scheme. The same playbook. The same trick, just new players, new entities, new years. And here's the part that should make you pause. This was not the first time. The technique had been used before. The names had circulated before. The regulators had seen versions of this before. And yet somehow, 26 new entities could be set up. Banks could process the transactions. Money could leave the country. And the system that was supposed to catch it caught almost nothing. So who knew? That is the question that haunts every story like this one. Because to move 700 million rand offshore, you do not need one villain. You need a chain. The accountant who prepares the invoice, the director who signs it, the forwarding agent who claims the import, the bank teller who processes the wire, the compliance officer who ticks the box, the regulator who never opens the file. At every link in that chain, someone could have stopped it. Someone could have asked the question, why are we importing this much from this supplier at this price to this account? Most of them did not ask. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they suspected and didn't want to know. Maybe they knew exactly and looked away because looking away was easier, and the salary was good, and the man in the suit was charming, and the paperwork, technically, was in order. This is the uncomfortable thing about laundering at scale. It is not a crime committed in the shadows. It is a crime committed in the open, with letterhead, with signatures, with phone calls confirmed and emails archived. The only thing hidden is the truth of what the documents actually describe. And Borat understood that. That was his gift. He could produce a document that looked like anything you needed it to look like. Invoices, contracts, declarations, statements. A whole architecture of plausibility. The nickname wasn't an accident. Bullshit, Bertie. The people who knew him knew exactly what he sold. But here is where the moral question sharpens. Borat employed people. He had a family. He moved through the same suburbs as his neighbors. He attended the same functions. To the people who knew him socially, he was not a criminal. He was a businessman who had done well. The kind of man whose success you might quietly envy without ever asking how it was built. And the men he implicated, were they masterminds? Or were they middle managers who had learned somewhere along the way that asking too many questions was a career-limiting move? Sabir at Habib Overseas had a job. He had targets. He had clients. When the wires came through and the documentation was complete, what was the incentive to dig deeper? The system does not reward digging deeper. The system rewards moving the money. That is the part nobody wants to admit. Banks make fees on transactions. Forwarding agents make commissions on shipments. Accountants bill hours on filings. Every link in the chain has a financial reason to keep the chain moving. And the regulator, underfunded, under-resourced, often years behind, arrives long after the money has gone. 700 million rand. Think about what that buys in a country like ours. Schools, hospitals, roads in towns where the roads have not been resurfaced in a decade. Pensions for people who worked their entire lives for a state that now struggles to pay them. That money did not vanish. It went somewhere. It is sitting, right now, in accounts and assets and structures designed never to be found. And Porat confessed. He said the paperwork was fake. He named the others. He gave investigators a map. But a confession is not a conviction, and a map is not a recovery. The Emma Bungan investigation laid the scheme out in public. The names, the flows, the mechanism, the Hong Kong front companies, the intermediaries, the bank insiders. It was all there, in print, for anyone who wanted to read it. And then, life continued. The case remains ongoing. No major convictions have been secured against the network described in the investigation. Recoveries, where they exist, have been partial and slow. The money, by every reasonable accounting, is gone. The verdict, for now, is silence. Investigations continue. Civil claims circulate. Names appear in filings and then disappear from headlines. No one has gone to prison for the 700 million. And that brings us back to the question we started with. Not whether the paperwork was fake. He told us it was. Not whether the money left the country. The records prove it did. The question is simpler and harder. If one man with a nickname and a stack of invoices can move 700 million rand out of a country, what does that tell us about the country he moved it out of? And about all the people in all the offices who watched the forms go by and signed?